Today I am going to be working on making a bustled petticoat. It's something that we need for the theater, and actually this will be the first one that I've actually put all together from the pattern, so I guess I'll do it for you and then we'll see how it works out together, and it might be something you want to try. Now these kind of petticoats are made to be bustled in the back against the hip, and they're flatter in the front, so this is more like 1870s, 1880s type of dress where they got away from the big, huge hoops and it was just in the back. They're really kind of funny looking, and I think they're great, so we're going to make this for the theater. Now, I got plain white broadcloth to use, and I'm going to cut out my pattern pieces first. And what I did is I just folded my fabric salvage to salvage and made sure it was all nice and straight. When you do that, if you run your fingers along the bottom, because it's never really folded straight from the manufacturer, but fold it salvage to salvage and then just kind of smooth it out. If you can run your finger along and you don't get any big bumps in it or where the fabric wants to roll underneath, then you folded it correctly. If you roll it along and then you get these funky bumps on it, then that means that you didn't fold it right and you need to go back and shift the top layer one way or the other way, and so that you'll get that bump out of the bottom. Okay, first of all, we're going to cut the C pattern piece. Now how they have this is they have place on fold. This is the biggest pieces, and they have place on fold on one side, and then what it ends up doing is it's like broadcloth always ends up running a little bit short, I found, and so it'll be a little bit off on the bottom, but don't worry about that because you're going to gather all of that anyway, so it'll just be slightly less, and I wouldn't worry about it at all. So really all you're doing is cutting this piece in lengths, length to length. I'm making an extra large, so I need 3 lengths. So I cut one, and then I slid it over, and I cut the next one, and then I slid it over and cut the third one, and that way you only have to cut this one side, just as long as your fabric's folded straight, and you might want to double check it each time you go to cut. And then I put in my marks. I think there's one mark here, and that was it. So I cut those ones, and then I cut this A piece, which is the top front. Now, on this pattern piece, they have it marked with a different grain line. If you're only making size small through extra large, then you want to lay it across the width of your fabric, just like you did the C's. And then there'll be a top, and there'll be 2 cuts. You're going to have to cut off that fold, and then you're going to cut. Actually, you won't even have to cut this side. Just lay this side even and then cut off down here at the fold, and then you already have your cuts. And then, of course, make sure you put your marks in. Now, if you're going to make an extra or 2XL size, then you're going to need to turn it and run it this way with the grain. So that way it just gives you more room and you don't have to put pieces together. And really, this applies for a lot of fabrics, especially if you're working with cottons that don't have any kind of pattern or anything to them or any kind of nap. If you can run one piece a certain way on the grain line, you can usually turn it and run it the other way if you need to. Of course, I wouldn't suggest that for anything like collars or anything like that because they need to lay a certain way on the bias, so you need to cut those right. But this is just a straight piece and it's underneath, so it's okay to turn it like that. So I cut that one. And then now, this is the last piece that I need to cut besides the waistband, and it's piece B. It is cut one on fold, and normally you would put the fold part down here and then cut it, but what it's going to do is it's going to leave a big gap of fabric up here that's going to be kind of unusable. So what I like to do is I'll scoop my pattern up, and then wherever it says cut on fold, I'll refold my fabric, and I'll just slide this down and I'll refold my fabric there. And so then what happens is I get a piece that's left up here that's much more usable than the small piece down here. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then we're going to work on marking all the boning lines and construction. Okay, a little note, as I was cutting this last piece, which is top back B, It is a place on the fold, which is not a normal place on the fold. Here's the place on the fold for 2XL, and then here is place on the fold for XL, which is what I'm doing. So I went ahead and I put my fold right there on that mark. Now, when you get to here, you need to mark your fabric with a little marking pencil or chalk or something up there, and then that's the line you'll cut on. So make sure that you don't miss that when you come in here and cut this piece. You need to make your mark and then cut on that line, and then go ahead and cut out the rest of the way. Okay, the beginning of the sewing portion is that you sew top front A together at the side, but you're going to leave open a place that because you need to leave this open so you can get it over your hips. So what you do is you put them together, and then of course it's marked on the pattern. And then when you're looking at your pattern, you'll see it has a line here and it says sew to this point right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to put right sides together, of course, and you're going to start at this point and sew down, and then you're going to leave the top open. Now, when I cut this, I put this right on the selvage of the fabric, and I laid it so my pattern I could cut it up here to the fold. So what ended up happening is, because I laid my selvage on this side of the fabric, when I go in here, I don't have to finish these edges because they're already finished. So let me lay this out here so you can see. You can see how I sewed it together, but these edges are finished, and so you don't have to worry about the selvage. Now, on this whole pattern, all of the seam allowances are 1/2 of an inch, not 5/8. So kind of note that to yourself. So I went ahead and used a 1/2 inch seam allowance here because I didn't have to finish these edges. Otherwise, I probably would have used a 5/8 inch seam allowance so that I could wrap this under and sew it down so that you don't have any exposed, anything that's going to ravel. So it ended up working out good, because then when I stopped up here, all I did was go ahead and press out that 1/2 inch all the way up. So this is one of the few seams that I actually press open. Okay, so that is